And there we go. We are recording the fourth episode of Fireside Chat. I did not put one up last month because I was busy putting together a studio apartment, trying to get everything ready for that. So this month, hopefully, we will have two. One now and then one hopefully at the end of the month.
Heck yeah. That's what I'm looking forward to. By the way, that apartment looks sick.
Yeah,
Wood
Red's been
paneling.
in there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm jealous.
But we're not talking about apartments today. Today we are going to be talking about the personification of death in media. So
Boo!
everyone knows the Grim Reaper. That's probably the most common one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different iterations of that.
Does anybody know where the Grim Reaper came from?
The original? I'm not sure.
Because I do not actually know. That would have been a fantastic thing to look up before this.
I mean, it's old. Right. I know that much.
So, just a quick AI ask, it says the Grim Reaper, a symbol of death, often depicted as a skeletal figure with a scythe, emerged in 14th century Europe during the Black Death pandemic, drawing inspiration from various medieval personifications of death.
And then, so it came out in the Black Plague.
Evidently, that's what they're saying.
Makes sense. Although
Which
that
was by fleas,
it wasn't wearing
not
a bird
really
mask.
Yeah, those masks where they would put the herbs and incense in them, like it looks like a big bird's beak or whatever.
Yeah, the
plague
was
supposed
doctors.
To protect them. Yeah, because they thought disease came from bad smells, and then so if you made it smell good, interesting.
Well,
but
I mean, they were technically right.
Yeah, I found that really interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, in a different way.
I mean, it's a kind of filter.
Yeah, it sort of works. But
well, it's like that. There's a few sayings that in the past, like instead of saying like, "Oh, from the heart" or something, they would say from the stomach, because that's where they thought feelings came from.
Yeah.
And something like that, things change as you learn,
And then you find out some of the children's rhymes and stuff are about the Black Plague.
Yeah, the ring around the rosy and stuff.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Well, the funny thing about the stomach, I heard that the amount of nerve endings that are connected from your brain to your gut when you get a bad feeling about stuff and they tell you to trust your gut, a lot of that is the nerves that are being triggered there.
There's also a thing called mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons?
Yeah, essentially, they're the neurons that pick up on extremely subtle facial cues, like micro-expressions, and that's sort of what gives you that bad feeling in your gut. It's like, I got a bad feeling about this. It's because your mirror neurons are picking up on micro-expressions.
Right, it's why some people get, like, anxiety or, like, nausea and stuff. Like, I don't feel anxious or anything, but, like, my stomach feels like a total...
Yeah, it's those things that you don't consciously realize that you're even seeing. It's like the idea that you feel like you're being watched is usually because you've already seen it out of the corner of your eye, but you just haven't consciously realized it.
Oh, no, shut up.
Yeah, that was on...
That's why I have cats. They'll let me know.
Yeah, I recommend Roanoke Gaming has a bunch of stuff on stuff like that.
Interesting. So... I think that we should each go through and say either our most favorite depiction recently, or I thought that it would even be interesting to say, just because I think it's relative to the topic of death in media, that not necessarily even like the Grim Reaper, but like what was very interesting death in a story or something that you found particularly moving, because a lot of times they kill characters and stuff like that just to engage your feelings. And then so I thought that might be an interesting little sidebar that we could do as well.
That'd be fun. So who wants to start?
Rochambeau. Rock, paper, scissors?
You.
Okay. All right, fine. Then I will go first. Or Tobias.
I'm pretty sure most people would know mine at this point. The only main furry version of death, the wolf from The Last Wish.
Ooh, hard guess. That is a fantastic depiction, though. So run us through it.
I saw the movie back when it came out, but just the idea that death is essentially like a hunter of a sort. Like, there's... Like, if you're cheating death, then death is going to come after you in some form, and what better form than a pack hunter?
Yeah, I like the slow whistle introduction and how they actually depicted that it was something that you actively had to stave off in order to survive. like in order for life to have its meaning. Because it's like if there are no lows, then you can't have your highs without your lows. You got to have the dips too.
Yeah,
Otherwise, the highs have no meaning.
you
And
can't have the good
so,
without the bad, or there is no good.
hmm but with Puss in that particular story, I like how he was, out of comically out of his 9 lives, and then so this pack hunter shows up, like absolutely eat a cat, and you've watched him best every foe in the movie up until that point, and then so you're like, obviously he's not gonna have a problem with this, and then he gets easily handled by it, and then but I like how there was such a mood and a tone shift in that. That movie is fantastic. But I would recommend that just as like a movie, like as a good movie. You don't even have to have kids. It's fantastic. Uh, but I mean, I don't want to take over your point here. Like I really enjoyed it too.
I mean, that kind of was what I was going for, was just the idea that death is an inescapable thing. It will find you no matter what. And there was a great like newspaper illustration over a quote when Teddy Roosevelt died. It said, "Death had to take Teddy while he was sleeping, otherwise there would have been a fight."
That's hilarious.
Yes, I like the idea of one of death being something that's inevitable, but at the same time, I like the idea that it's not really like it doesn't care per se. Like it doesn't have like a hatred or anything like that. It's just doing its job. It's just
Hmm
the Grim Reaper is going around doing his job because somebody has to.
Oh,
That,
I found it. That brings me. I like the idea. That's why I really like this commercial that I was talking about. I found it. It's from 1999 in Finland, and it shows like some people said maybe the guardian angel or death. It just goes around the street like aggressively saving people, like oh these stupid idiots, like blah, 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 blah. It's really good because it just does like assholeish things, like push somebody or trip somebody to avoid them like getting hit by a truck or something. It's
hmm
really, I
That
really
also
like
reminds me
it.
of I don't know if it was Greek or Roman, the Fates, the Sisters of Fate.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
Greek. They were in the God of War games. That's how I know.
Yeah, like they're even
Hold
a
on.
personification of death in a way because they're literally the ones who measure out how much life somebody has.
I put it in the chat
All
if
right,
you want to watch it.
I'll see if we can somehow stitch it into the end or stitch it in the middle of this somewhere.
Yeah, no problem. It
I'll see what I can
recently
do.
came back like in a reel with one of those musics. Oh my god, one of those soundtracks that is kind of like epic and deep. So
Okay.
I remember it. I've watched it like I really like it because it's just like oh my god, I have to save these idiots. Like look where you're going. It has that sense to it.
Yeah, that
I
kind of
think I've seen what you're talking about. It sounds so familiar, but
Yeah,
what
because
a
it appears every now and again like
it just kind of pops up now and then.
what a
yep.
hilarious depiction.
But another aspect I like is the idea that you can play a game with death, like in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where they literally play. I think they play like
Oh,
checkers against the Grim Reaper.
yeah, that is hilarious. That it's a comedic take on like the Grim Reaper from the Seventh Seal. That is, I love Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
That's the
The
one.
second one, but
And
yeah,
I
it's
remember
in
they
the
also did
second one.
a parody of it on Animaniacs, where it's the same thing as Wacko's soul was the prize, so he was just sitting there with a sign on him that says trophy.
Well, another depiction that I really like that probably more familiar with might be the death in Supernatural.
I
I
I
love
don't know if
that
never
you've
watched
seen
show.
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Then
been a
Yeah,
while since I watched that.
it's in the fifth season because the first 5 seasons are awesome. But yeah,
yeah.
not the.
He was one of his introduction was so cool, but then I love Supernatural, but in the later seasons, it just like they disturbed the story of that. I'm like, what are you doing? What do you mean? But it
Yeah.
was a really cool introduction because you see this like old man just walking down the street. Somebody bumps into him, and like very rude. And then 2 seconds later, like he collapsed from a stroke or something like that, and the guy just walking like, ugh, peasant.
hmm
Funny.
Yeah, he had a cane. I forget the actor that played him, but he was fantastic. They had to sit down with him because I think they did all four of the Horsemen, if I'm not wrong, in the fifth
Yep.
season.
Yeah. He was
Julian
the
Richings.
pale one. Mm-hmm.
Julian Richings is
Yeah,
the one who played him.
he's a fantastic character actor. He's been around for forever.
He's been in 225 film and television series,
Yeah, he's
including the
been
original
in.
Cube.
Yes, he was. I think he gets sliced in the very opening scene. Dude, I'm such a dork for those movies. I love the Cube movies. Well, Sophie, do you want to give your favorite depiction of death in media?
Oh, I mean, that was one of them, yeah.
Mm, yeah. Well,
Okay.
also, and we were talking about this in the voice chat, and Tobias brought it up that in anime, like you have the animal soul eater, where the how do you say this? The
Well, they had
like
the Grim Reaper
yeah,
is literally like the dean of the school.
exactly. There you go. Right, and his son also is like the son of death, and
Yeah,
it's just so funny.
Kid Death.
No, I've
Kid
never
death.
seen that. That sounds
And he has this
interesting.
whole
Yeah.
thing with symmetry where like everything has to be perfectly symmetrical,
Mm-hmm.
or he just kind
Yeah,
of
but
goes like a little bit crazy.
yeah, it's I like it because like the again not only the dean of the school, but it's like they protect like the mayor of this city. And in the first episode, no, I don't know if it's the first episode, but you learn that like everybody's soul, how much it surrounds somebody, is how powerful it is. So some people have it like really small in the chest, some will have it like around all their person. And so the episode ends with one of the characters trying to see Death's soul. And it's like, I can't see it, and then it pans out and it's surrounding the all of the city. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
and I
I
love the
thought that was
fact they
cool.
made like this super intense character kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when he's not like being the Reaper, he's kind of like he's a silly guy. He's a guy you can kind of just get along with.
Yep.
Not always the Reaper. How
Because
There
like
they
he's
was
not
say.
always
another
doing it.
one. Yeah,
He's
he's
not
just
always
chilling.
reaping.
What was
Sometimes
it?
the
There was
Reaper is
a
just big chillin'.
I remember there was a comic I saw a while ago that was like the Grim Reaper coming up to a soul that's still stuck to the body by like the end of the little ghost tail, like the classic ghost thing. He
Mhm.
just flicks it off with a pair of gardening shears, and then he notices the soul's looking at him like, What do you? How? Why didn't you use the scythe? I'm used to everyone using the scythe. Everyone shows that." And it's like, oh, the scythe is just for battlefields. Anything else is considered overkill.
That's funny.
There are two books I like also that like have you read or seen the movie of it, The Book Thief?
I have not.
I have not.
Alright, so it's let's see when is it from? 2005. Alright, so it's basically a story during Nazi Germany, right?
Hmm.
And it's just like hold on, I don't remember so much the complete thing, but it is about like reading books that were banned during it. But the interesting thing is that it starts with a death, just walking, like between the camps and looking and just like being like sad, like so much work, pointless work, and like then being interested in like one person who like gets a book from the books that are burning, and that's the start of it. It's like I'm interested in this person, that this child that got a book from everything else that's burning, and that's how it starts. And I thought it was like really impactful. I don't remember if it's well represented in the film. I have to double check.
That
So
sounds
I might have to
interesting.
check.
Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I know Red likes
The
that
book
kind
is
of
really
stuff.
good.
That I do. There.
Okay, no, that's what.
And then of course you have a lot of the religious versions of death that you see all over the world from various religions or just various belief systems. Like I think the most well-known one, at least among furries, is Anubis, who's
Oh
not
yeah.
really a
Why
reaper.
among fairies? Everybody knows Anubis. How dare you?
Yeah, the most popular among furries is probably Anubis.
For sure.
But the idea of a judge of souls
Egyptian,
on
correct?
death. When you're dead, you go to the judge, and the judge decides where you go, and that's Anubis.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Have you
he
seen
doesn't do the
what's the
reaping, but he
name?
does direct you to where you're going after that. And I think that's an integral part of death and an integral part of pretty much every religion at this point, because I don't think there really is a religion currently that doesn't have some form of judgment of souls.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Have you
Well,
seen Gods of Egypt with Gerard Butler?
I
No,
have
I have
not
not.
seen that movie. I know Nikolai
It's
Coster-Waldau's in it too.
a lot of people didn't like it, but like I watched this film after like reading
I recognize the title.
Rick.
Let me see. It might have come
Yeah, you
out
probably.
when I was working at a theater.
Hmm.
I really liked it because I thought
Yeah,
even though
2016.
like some things were whatever, like I thought they got a lot of the mythology correct. And one of the things is that like they how they portray Anubis, like you said, like he appears and like okay, come on, child, let's go. I'll go with you, right? Night, like you said, it's not like a being that okay, yes, I get to kill somebody. No, it's like okay, part of life. Let me help you go
I have a job
to
to
where you
do.
have to go. Exactly.
And it came out 2016. It doesn't say when. Okay, give me an actual date. I've got a
Yeah,
couple
I
of dates
remember
here, but oh, here it is.
Chadwick
Release
Boseman
date
was
February
off.
26th, 2016. So it was in theaters while I was still working there. So yes, I probably saw parts of it.
I really liked it. I like it. It was nice.
And it's a better representation than what we got out of a bunch of other media,
Mm-hmm.
like the Pyramid. That was
Yeah,
just bad.
because again, like I saw this after I read like Rick Riordan's Kane Chronicles, I think, and like he's the one that wrote the Percy Jackson books. And so he knows a lot about mythology, and that's how he incorporated it into his books, and that's why they were so interesting. Like because I read those when I watched the film, I was like, oh, this is this person. Oh, this I get this reference. You know, things like that. It was I liked it. Might not have a high score, but it's nice. I like it.
Oh, here's another good one. From Terry Pratchett, Discworld, Death in That.
I know of it, but I'm not familiar with it. I like the Greek depiction with the Sisters of Time, and like even in the Disney Hercules movies, they're
Oh
three campy old ladies that are, have
yeah,
laughing,
incoming.
yeah, having a good time, so fun. Um, and in the God of War games, they're depicted a lot differently, of course. So, but I always found that one interesting that every person had a thread, and that they it would,
The thread of one, the thread
yeah,
of many. No.
God,
and then
no.
they would chop. And I was like, what an interesting depiction. I'm not sure what the Norse had or what some of these other cultures
Well, the
had. I wonder
Norse
what the
had
Japanese
Valhalla and
had.
stuff like that, the Valkyries,
Mm-hmm.
which were
Oh
the
yeah,
Yeah,
ushers
but
take
of
you
the
to a
souls of
battlefield.
those who died in battle. So in a sense,
yeah, it was
they're
kind of like they had levels, like you said, like the right Valhalla is if you die
in
in
battle.
death, right?
Yeah.
In battle, in death. What did I say? In battle, like, I was reading death. In battle, and that's like the top tier. But then it's like if you get normal deaths, you go down, whatever.
But struck down in like the middle of a mushroom-filled brawl. Then yeah, that's what those berserkers were doing. They were eating psychedelic mushrooms and then would go bananas and go out there and give people the chop and raid and pillage and take women back to the Scandinavian places and raid monasteries, do all sorts of stuff. Nice guys.
Okay, I found
Eighteen.
the thing on Terry Pratchett's version, which is he's essentially no one can actually see him unless they want him to, or unless he wants them to, which is kind of an interesting idea. The way they say it here is death is not invisible, but most people's brains refuse to process who he is unless he insists on it.
Mm.
Death can ignore things like walls because he is eternal, and things that last mere centuries are not as real as he is. So I like
It's
that
so
idea of like
interesting.
I don't. Death is all ever present, but unless he wants you to see him, you won't.
I haven't watched this, but I the other day, like some clips from American Gods,
Oh,
like
that's a fun show.
talking about like I think it is Anubis or Death, but like he appears different. It was like a compilation, and he appears like in the different people's beliefs, like how they perceive him,
Yeah.
and like he would
Yeah,
take them to the. And I thought it was really that was really
it
interesting.
actually is a
But I
pretty
haven't
good
watched
idea
the
as
show,
well.
so I don't know.
Like,
The first season's fantastic. Second season is very strange, but the third season was awesome. But then they canceled it. So, but
Yeah.
it's a fun watch, especially the first season. I don't know. I think it was like over $100 million that they dumped into those 6 episodes, and it
wow.
shows. Yeah, it's and what is that guy's name? Ricky White is the main character, and then you've got that Irish actor from the John Wick movies. He's that older guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he's in it too. And he's playing Odin. Um, and there's a lot of gods in that. There's even one called Tech Boy because technology emerges and it creates its own god, and it's represented as this antagonistic 20-something-year-old that's like a tech mogul. There's some really interesting different ones that they show in that show. I really enjoyed what they were doing with it, but yeah, it was short-lived.
Yeah. I have like the Kindle. I bought it at like the Kindle book. I bought it years ago,
Mhm.
and it's still there in my Kindle. I haven't read it yet, but I've always wanted to because I like this kind of like stories and learning about different mythologies, religions. I like it.
Um, One video I highly recommend is from a channel called Tail Foundry, and it's a video called "What If Death Was a Person?" And it goes over a lot of the idea of death being personified, kind of like what we're talking about. It's like, what does death represent in media? Which for me is kind of an interesting concept because it's like death can appear for so many different people for so many different things. And like what we were saying earlier with well, before we were recording, we were talking about Final Destination and the idea of
Yeah.
death in that.
Yeah, that it's
It's like
this.
death isn't
Uh,
a person or a thing; it's a force. It's a force of
yeah,
nature.
you never see the actual bad guy in the movie. You just see death as a Rube Goldberg machine. Like that it'll set off this inadvertent series of events that would lead to your tragic, untimely death. Why it has to be a particularly violent death, I don't know, but all of
Because you
them
don't
are.
screw death over.
Yeah,
It's
I
like the
guess because
mafia; he'll
death.
make an example out of you.
Yeah, it's like maybe the original death was something normal, but since they cheated, it's like, all right, you cheated here.
Yeah, burnt. If like in the first
But
movie, it's
even then,
burning to
like
death
the
in an aircraft.
yeah, an airplane explosion. I'm pretty sure that's not
Yeah,
considered
Oh my
normal.
god,
yeah, and then so a dude gets to be choked to death in his bathtub. I hated that one in the first movie. Like this, it was so simple. This guy gets a metal cord wrapped around his neck, and the like baby oil or whatever falls over into the bathtub, so he can't get any traction, and he just chokes to death.
was Diddy
He's like,
involved?
it did. There wasn't more than one thing of baby oil, so I think he was okay.
Oh my goodness.
And it just
If
got
there was
even
Well,
like
more
also like
57
complicated.
the
baby oil bottles there, then for sure.
oh my god, like also the opposite where it's like it's not your time, and like even like in real life, you hear those crazy situations of people, like for example, there are a lot of stories like of 9/11, like a person missed the flight and then missed the other flight and survived like both crash things like that. It's like when it's not your time, it's not your time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, like the guy, there was one dude who went to both nuclear bombs that were
Yeah.
dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what a shitty
It's like
day.
on
Like, you
one
already
hand,
made it.
it's the most unlucky guy in the world, but on the other hand, he kept surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what a cool story that you almost got vaporized twice. Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah, that
crazy.
reminds
Like,
me.
nobody has
What
your
is it
story
called?
of, like, oh yeah, I was at the other one too. Had to get to work.
Yeah, that like stories like that make me really whenever I don't know, for example, okay, I need to do this or I need to travel and it's like I don't feel good, or then there's another problem, or there was a problem with the ticket, like so many obstacles. I'm like, should I go on this trip? It's like
Yeah.
there's too many obstacles. This is not normal. It's like, I don't know.
I think that's what makes movies like the Final Destination movie so interesting is because I think we all kind of feel that feeling. and because death is ubiquitous and it is something that everybody will do regardless. I think that it kind of teases that out of our brains, being some of the. Are we the only mammal that knows that of our death? Are we the only ones with brains big enough that know that we're gonna die, or is there any other species that knows that they're gonna die and has to reckon with their own fate? I think
Yeah.
it's just humans.
I think humans are the ones that had that kind of existential crisis, at least that we know of. But then again, we're not getting into
Mm.
HFY stories again.
Mhm.
But yeah,
What
I
you
mean
reminded me
the
of,
fact.
Red, that guy talking about the guy who survived both bombings. A great memorial of that for a while anyway. I think they're gone now. Were the human shadows etched in stone,
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
and that alone would be like an amazing example of death being literally seen, because the only thing
Yeah.
remaining of those people are literally the shadows that were left, that were scorched into the concrete.
That's pretty wild I mean, just thinking about that, or like people's watches stopped and stuff like that, like that there's certain things that they just stopped working at that instance, and then and they were never touched again. It's like, oh, that's pretty
Yeah, it's a
harrowing.
great example of just the idea of personifying death in a way that's more realistic to what we see in the real world. It's that
Man,
idea that it can come at literally any time, and nothing can really stop it once it's in motion. But at the same
Yep.
time, you still have that. You still want to leave a reminder of who you were at that point.
ooh, this makes me wonder, does this count in our discussion? Because it is media and it does cover death. The movie Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, where he's a dude that runs around and videotapes like recent accidents or recent crimes as soon as they happen. It's absolutely bizarre because the dude's a total sociopath and really manipulative and a really interesting character in the movie. There's lots of reasons that the movie's interesting, but the I think that the fact that the entire thing revolves around death, but death as a business,
That is a
like
pretty
this
interesting
guy.
idea.
Well, the fact that the main character, so this is I'm not sure if either of you have seen this, but
I
he's
remember
a
seeing an
very
advertisement for it.
he's super bizarre in this movie and like very talkative and like has a lot of confidence and he kind of looks like a coyote and he's like a little emaciated but he acts hungry like hey like I got a pitch for you and stuff and you're watching this dude and he ends up you're just seeing like this dude who's kind of a loser but that he has either a lot of passion or a grave mental illness and he ends up seeing an accident on the side of the highway and sees people film it, and then he's like, "You get paid for that?" And then so this dude becomes a night crawler, which is somebody who literally hangs around, listens for the police scanner and stuff like that for accidents, and tries to beat the police there to get raw pictures of like people in awful situations. And it's a very harrowing movie, but the reason why I thought that it was interesting is because this dude's literally capitalizing on death and people's desire to see it. And that's not
Mhm.
just and in that it's not just death at because people really do this. There's one of the longest running magazines in Mexican history is one called Alarma, and it has front page black and white pictures of crime scenes and all sorts of stuff. And I forget what they called it over there. I had seen this short documentary about it, but these guys run around and try to get pictures of these things, and then they hawk them to newspapers and stuff, just like with what was Princess Diana when she died, and those paparazzis took pictures of them of their bodies in the car and stuff like that, like because of how much it sells. And it's just
Yeah.
like death
Mm.
as a business, something that we all know that we want to do, or that we're going to not want to do, that we're going to do rather. But then these people literally are like, oh, I can make, and it's not like a mortician who's like, oh, these people need a service. This is like a hungry public demands this of these people. At least that's how they see it. And to
Mhm.
go and do these things that are absolutely objectifying and horrifying for people that are in like a very awful, vulnerable situation, and they're taking pictures of it and then putting it all over everywhere for everybody to see. It's like, ugh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very
I
gross.
think there was. I don't think it's as common now, but there were lawyers that would do that. They were called ambulance chasers.
Ambulance chasers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that same idea.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, I hear an ambulance siren. Better go see if anyone wants to get sued.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. No,
strange. Oh, go
also,
ahead.
I know this film. I haven't watched it. It's an old film. Probably know it. It's with Brad Pitt. Uh, Meet Joe Black, where he is like a Grim Reaper, or and
Oh my
he.
gosh, it's been so long since I've seen it, but yes, I have seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen. I know about it, but I've like never gotten around to see it. But I thought it's also interesting. Like, I want to see what it's like to be human.
No spoilers, but there is one, and this has nothing to do with death. This is just a total sidebar for a scene of that movie that is, in my opinion, hilarious because it comes out of nowhere. And I don't think it'll ruin for you because nobody ever sees it coming. Somebody gets hit by a car, but it's not one car. They get hit in the air and then get hit by a second car. And it is so gnarly in that
That
movie.
reminds
I
me of the end
remember.
scene of God. What the hell was that movie with Joey King? It was a monkey's paw style movie. It had a music box. I can't remember what it was called. YMS did a Adam and Pal's watch of it, but I can't remember the name of it. But the end is just like that, where she gets hit by one car and gets hit by a second one.
Dude, that took me by such surprise as a kid because it's like, seeing one is insane, but seeing that, especially at the time, and this is like really early CGI, how they did it is really well done. But yeah, that movie, I remember it being really interesting because everybody was talking about how he was death and that it wasn't. And I remember being like, "What?" as a kid, and I watched it later, and I remember enjoying it. But it's been so long. Brad Pitt's so young in that movie.
Wish Upon. That's
Yeah,
the name of the movie.
1998.
98. Oh, he did that after Seven. Crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, he did Seven in 1997, if I'm not mistaken.
Makes sense.
Well, speaking of that, like in theater also, have you guys ever watched Hamilton?
I have not.
I, I've seen some of it, but yeah, I had a hard time with it.
Well, it's because like I really liked it, like from someone who's not from the US. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting history. I want to learn more.
Hmm.
But like looking at like all the forums, the fan sites, and all, there was something really interesting that said that there's one character, and when I rewatched it, I saw her who plays Death, and
Oh, really?
and everyone she like interacts with, like a handshake or whatever, they die in the play. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting.
Huh. That
I
is something
thought
Oh,
it
very
was
interesting.
cool.
I saw, I think it was like the first 30 minutes or first 40 minutes, but it was with a bunch of people that were like knew the stuff, but I didn't know it, and it was very unfamiliar setting, and I didn't know what the hell everybody was saying. It was hard for me to keep up, and I was just like, this is a bit much, or whatever.
Oh,
Kind of like
I really like.
uh, uh, just like I really like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but do not enjoy seeing it with Rocky Horror Picture fans. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Because they like throw shit in the air and everybody's dressed like crazy, like people from the movie and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's a fun movie, but I don't want to play dress up.
Oh, there was
When people,
what you remind me of,
oh, sorry,
Sophie.
go
There's
ahead.
a SCP called the Hanged King's Tragedy, and it has that same idea. There's literally an entity that shows up whenever this play is done, and it just hangs out in the background. It doesn't do anything. It's just kind of there 1 second and then gone the next. But every time it shows up, something dies.
Hmm.
And it's called the Hanged
Yeah, but
King's Tragedy. It's a great SCP read.
Huh.
what I found interesting about this one is that like one of the reasons I really liked Hamilton, apart from the scenery, the choreography, and the history, it was like they had these subtle things that if you don't look for them or if you don't like investigate, like you have no idea. You know, little things like I and that particular like character I thought was like really interesting.
Yeah,
'Cause-
the idea that you can have like death as a character in a series or a play or a movie, and just kind of have them in the background in a sense. Like if you
mhm.
don't look for it, you won't even notice that they're there.
I don't know if this counts or is in the same category, but it totally reminded me of something that I read up on a while ago. Because I got this weird tick that was like I was wondering who had probably actually like physically killed the most amount of people, not murder, but like killed. And it's because it's usually what you would think probably would be like a state executioner, probably back in the day or something like that. And I
Yeah,
was reading
probably
up on it and
gets
read up on all these
more
different people.
accidental than anything else.
Well, I was reading about and I looked him up, and there was this guy, and he was the one who, if I'm not mistaken, was the one who hung all the Nazis. But at the end of the war.
Oh, so a
But it's
hero.
Albert Albert Pierpoint was an English hangman who had executed between 435 and 600 people in his 25-year career that ended in 1956. Yeah, and his father Henry and his uncle Thomas were official hangmen before him. They just ran in the family. Yeah, I remember reading up about this guy and the methods and that he came up with. And there's a couple films that actually depict him doing this because because he was a famous hangman. But I mean, hanging people all the way up till 1956. That's pretty wild. Makes you wonder what his. If I remember, he had some really interesting things to say about death in particular, and like as he saw it, and sending people on their way and stuff like that. Because it's like if you're exposed that much to it, but it's like in an official capacity, which is a lot different,
Yeah.
a lot different than you think. A lot of soldiers have no idea how many people that they killed because you're shooting and depending on the environment and you don't always get to go see what you did and stuff like that. Like some of the special forces guys do because it's easy to keep track when you're just raiding houses and stuff like that. But the
Well, that
people
and they
who
have to
are
confirm kills.
yeah, and stuff like that. But it's a bit different when you're like an official hangman. You're like, oh no, I'm employed by the state to do this. This
Yeah,
is
when
my
you're
job.
an executioner.
And he tried to find like the most humane ways of doing it, which I found really interesting because he's like, I want to have the correct thing so that people aren't sitting here, strangling. And he looked at like the different methods that people were using and stuff, and he just got very analytical about it. And you're like, oh, it's very British. It's very British.
Very British, yes. And that is still like a form of Grim Reaper when you think about it.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea of trying to understand that in a form. I think is where a lot of the personification of death comes from. It's everyone trying to kind of come to terms with it. It's like if you make death look like a human, you can kind of make more sense out of it. Like if you make it something you can understand, like a force you can talk to, then it's like, oh, it's a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Uh, And again, tell me if I'm sidebarring here, but I found out that some of the tactics that the Soviets were using and during that time period where they would black bag people at night, where they got the inspiration from was from one of their early czars. Now I'm totally forgetting his name, but he would send knights out on black horses in black armor, head to toe so that you couldn't see who they really were. And they literally,
Monsters.
well, they literally felt like they were death personified because they didn't know who these guys were, and they were from, from the king. And then, if they had your name, dude, you were done. There was nothing you
Mm-hmm.
could do about it. And so when the Bolsheviks were taking over, and they were doing their red terrors and shit, murdering all sorts of people for all sorts of indiscriminate reasons. They looked back in time to see, oh, how did they do it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
because it's hard to
Right.
grab people in public and stuff. And then, like
Yeah,
if
it
you
does
go
make it a
like
little more difficult.
well, like I read this book called The Gulag Archipelago, right? Or it's written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I can't say his name, but he talked about a lot because the guy spent like 8 years in a gulag, and
Damn.
he wrote a book about it. And the book was like banned in Russia, and you obviously couldn't have it. And it was just a bunch of papers that he actually snuck out of the gulag and compiled and stuff. There's a really interesting story behind the book. And then I had heard about it, so I read the book, and it is so beautifully written and so simple to read and to understand. But the amount of like pain and stuff that you read in this book can be like a bit overwhelming. At least it is for me,
Mm.
because like it's such subtle things like they would put them in like people in a room with a light on that never turned off and a chair that you could not sit in, and it was just enough room for you to stand up, but you couldn't sit down beside the chair or anything. And if you sat down, that they would beat the shit out of you and stuff.
Mm.
And it's just like there. And the guys who ran the prison camps, they had blue bands around their hats, and it was to show that the only thing, because the only thing beautiful that you would ever see in a gulag was the sky. So people would look up a lot to get, because that was the only thing that didn't look, wasn't covered in mud and awful and death and disease and everything else. So people would
Right.
just look up. And so they had blue bands on their thing to show that they own the sky too. And you're just like, that's what these people do, and manipulation through death and torture and whatnot. And it's like that's death as a machine or as orchestrated by people. So I mean, it's not death in media because it's real or whatever. So I guess I'm kind of veering off point or whatever. But yeah, that I mean, they've shown plenty of depictions of what totalitarian governments do in film and whatnot. I mean, some of the films that have come out depicting the horrors of what the Stalin like and what they did and stuff like that. I don't know what the Russian depictions of death were, but what started me off on this was them using black horses and coming in at night to grab you because it was intentionally airy. It's meant to, just like
Mhm.
the way the Nazis dressed. It was meant to scare you, like, and intimidate you. Like you're supposed to be like,
Right.
whoa, look at the way like this means business,
They
and
probably
that's why they
got
wear
the idea
uniforms.
from the original, the Plague Doctors, and the Grim Reaper idea of just wearing all black. Like you have the black robe, and there's nothing under the hood, kind of thing. It's like you don't know what it is. You just know there's this black figure out in front of you.
Yeah, and they're wearing stuff over their head, and they're supposed to be the ones. There's a interesting South Korean movie called Thirst. It's a vampire movie, and I forget I really like their depiction of death in this movie because a guy is a priest who ends up being sent to a leper colony that basically they take care of these people, but every priest that goes there ends up dying. And then so the
Mhm.
only people who go are usually like the priests in the covenant that are like already have something that's going to kill them, or like they're really old, they're willing to make the sacrifice. But this guy's a young guy, and he is like, no, like I believe God will protect me and stuff. And then so he goes there and dies from this affliction in like a really awful way, um, while taking care of these people. But then he doesn't die. He comes back and then starts healing. And then he literally contracts like what is like their version of vampirism or whatever. But what the interesting thing about this movie is that it follows this guy's life as like as a devout person, um, following God, and then being turned into like an eternal creature that literally lives off like the life of others, and then what that does, and then finding out that he also like can create people that live like him. So he like ends up making a companion, and how she handles it is completely different than how he handles it, and
Mm.
like their relationship together in the long term. And then so like the whole thing is about them and accepting death. And I don't want to spoil anything if anybody's actually interested in watching this, but the end of the movie is and how they handle death and where it goes, I found to be very, very interesting.
What's the name of this movie?
It's called Thirst. It's from
First.
yeah, Thirst. It's from 2008. It's fantastic. The cinematography's great. Um, it's you got I mean, you obviously got to watch it in English subtitles. It's with one of my favorite Korean actors ever. I forget the guy's name, but it's a
It's my favorite
romantic.
guy ever. I can't remember his name.
Well, they Korean names, there's three names, and I always forget because they're short. I mean, I remember a bunch of the directors' names because, you keep going back to their work and like, oh, what's the new thing that Bong Joon-ho's making, sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't have all the actors. I have all their faces memorized. I can be like, I love that guy. I've seen him in all, and I can name all 12 of the of the movies I've seen him in or whatever. I love South Korean movies, by the way. But yes, Thirst is fantastic because they even do the part of vampires that, like, they can jump, and they show him and how he ends up, part of how he develops his relationship with this girl and who he picks and why. Again, I don't want to ruin it, but the movie is also a romance movie,
That actually
and
reminds me of I don't know if either of you have seen the original Nosferatu.
I've never seen the
No.
original, and I haven't seen the new one either. But I heard both are fantastic.
Well, the original one is he's essentially a shadow of death because he's a vampire, but his shadow brings death and disease. So he's another personification of death during that time period, where it's just
Lord
his
Orlock.
shadow over somebody causes them to die.
Really? I didn't know like
Like that was a major
are you
part of
saying
the
like his
film, and why it was technically different from Dracula was because he didn't like do the whole blood sucking thing as much. Like I think there was still a couple scenes that were like that, but the general idea was, it was just his shadow. It was the shadow of death over this village.
is he more of like classified as like an energy vampire? Like a life force vampire? Like they just suck the life out of you by being in their
I think
presence
so. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison there.
and just wear you down until they take it.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. Those people I've always liked depictions of vampires. I've always liked werewolves more, but there's not very many depictions of werewolves as there are. And nowhere near as many depictions of werewolves as there are of vampires, or at least that are quality
yeah. The
in
quality's
movies
kind
and
of
stuff.
up and down.
Yeah, but like I always thought it was interesting how vampires deal with immortality, even in like what are those the underworld movies that vampires like would create their own societies
Yeah,
completely separate from humans or whatever because they're on just a completely different level and stuff.
yeah,
And I think I nerded out about this last time in the sci-fi section when we were talking about the depiction of a vampire in one of my books, and that they have like that they were natural hunters of humans, and the reason why they suck blood is because they're looking for a particular enzyme in it that helps with their metabolic rate, and they're also like 9 feet tall. And when you see them, it's the same. It gives humans the same reaction as like gazelle do when they see lions and they're terrified. And then so you can't look them straight in the face. They have such a high IQ that they can hold like 5 different simultaneous positions at the same time and believe them and argue them with one another in their head to rectify a decision. It's
actually, I think
real.
a really good vampire idea of eternity and dealing with the
Twilight.
lack of death. Not Twilight. Daybreakers.
Oh, Daybreak. Yeah, where they
Yeah, the
take over
opening
humans and
scene
just
in Daybreaker with the little girl who's we don't even know how actual old she is, but she's so tired of living forever that she's willing to go out and burn herself up in the sun.
yeah,
And
because
she
who
looks like
wants
she's
to
like
be?
what, 8, 10, somewhere in there.
Yeah, because she has total arrested development, and it's just like, how do you live an adult life?
Yeah, how do you
Yeah,
live a
my
life that is absent of death?
my grandmother always said that being old was a privilege, and that you should be glad that you made it there. To which
Yeah,
I
well, let's
was
try
just
that in
like,
Ryan Kinnell.
and she's just like, there's lots of people that never got the chance to get old. You should appreciate it.
Yeah,
I was just like,
it
huh.
sounds like something like you should appreciate the time you had to grow up because some people don't.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the only
For
thing
sure.
certain, according to Ben Franklin, is death and taxes. And I'm going to add one more thing to that: the end of podcasts. Because we are just about an hour in, and I'm going to do some cutting down and editing to take out some of the blank spots. Usual stuff. I'm going to try to have
there
this up sometime this week. Hopefully, either on the 7th or the 8th. We'll see what happens there. But
there are no dead spots.
yeah, I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna cut
You're
it to
gonna
death
shorten this
myself.
by half a second, so just so you know.
So once again, thanks for joining on this fireside chat. I am gonna try to get another one up by the end of the month. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but hopefully you guys will be able to join me.
Absolutely. You let me know when,
Yep.
and I'll be there.
So once
Yep.
again,
Yep.
I am Tobias,
I'm Sophie.
And I am Red.
and we will talk to you guys later. Hopefully, you enjoy the episode, and
Later, Gators.
maybe in the comments tell us what your favorite personifications of death are.